So the whole point, so I had Bill on. The whole
Brought me on
point, yep, is just to talk to people about life
Okay.
and mostly about their life, but there's occasions where it'll just overlap and we just talk about life in general or
Right.
whatever topic sticks out. And you're one of the most interesting human beings I know. So, and I don't mean that as like
No, no.
a gobe's interesting. I mean that as in like I don't even know your full life story.
In my world, my story is boring.
Right, and it's not. 100% it's not. Now with that said, obviously I'm going to tread lightly
Well,
given
tread where you need
the
to. I don't.
history and the circumstances. I'm going to let you do whatever direction you kind of want to go, and then if I find a question, I'm going to ask it. But Vince, are we able to say your last name, or do we need to
Oh, no.
black that out?
It's,
Okay. Vince Vetterkind. Vetterkind.
it's German.
I figured. It sounds like it. Vetterkind or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
I don't speak a lick of it though.
So were you born in Germany? No.
No.
Where did I don't even know half of this.
From the Wausau area.
Oh, okay.
So central Wisconsin. My mom and dad, product of farmers, and I think my dad is like third generation German. So I
Oh,
think
wow.
his great. I'm gonna say his grandparents immigrated in from Germany.
Wow.
So, yeah. So
That's-
he, after just going through life and joining the army, during the Vietnam time, got out of the army, moved over to Wausau, drove truck he's still doing it at he's like 70. Oh gosh, he was born in, let me do the math, born in 47.
Yeah.
77. Still driving
Holy
truck.
smokes.
Yeah.
Still driving truck.
Yeah.
That'd be
He could retire, he just,
I was gonna say my grandpa probably could have until
Right.
he was still driving like short truck, I think, for like a mink farm
okay.
until they moved here and then obviously was fully retired.
So my dad only knew one thing, and it's called work.
Yeah.
Rest
Yeah.
is work.
Well, and sometimes, like, not speaking this out on your dad at all, but sometimes when people like retire or stop, that's when things get
Yeah.
like they go downhill. Kind of is like you got to give them a purpose.
Me retiring now. It's all of the things that I neglected on my health, injuries wise, because mission first.
Yep.
And then I can't appear weak and don't want to be a wuss and other things.
Yep.
I let all of that go. But now all of that is just kind of coming up to the forefront now that I'm no longer doing that. So now I'm looking at surgeries and
Oh yeah, because you retired from
from active duty army.
Yeah,
So 22 and a half years.
22 and a half.
Yeah.
So-
in 98.
Was that right out of high school?
No. I went to college because everybody told me
Oh.
I had to or else I'd be a failure.
Dude, same. And I regret the decision.
I had no clue what I was going to do. So I go to a university, which UW Stevens Point, known for partying. And
What school in Wisconsin?
This is true. This is as a college kid, it was dangerous for me. I had amazing parents that taught me a lot, but that didn't stop once I got on my own. I decided, I've realized, and this is something I'm going to pass on to the youth because I'm going to talk to them in next month, but
Oh,
it's
sick.
that one little thing that you agree to, right? In my case, it was alcohol, right? The party and wanting to be a part of the in crowd, right? Agreeing to that, which at the time didn't feel like much, but it just started to grow and snowball, and to a point where, now I'm smoking weed, skipping classes, drinking, and then I got busted for an underage while driving.
Ooh.
Thankfully, I'm from a small town,
Yeah.
and I was not let off, but it wasn't as harsh as it should be.
Sure.
I joined the army like as soon as the court stuff cleared up, and I was down at MEPS in Milwaukee, and after my first year of college, I finished out the year, shipped off to the army. I was only going to do 2 years,
But then you found home. Or no, just a purpose.
I found something to do. I don't know how to say purpose, but I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I still don't.
Sure.
But it was something to do. I
Mm-hmm.
liked the Army at the time. When I first joined, I just drove a fuel truck and refueled Patriot missile launchers. Sounds a lot more glamorous than what it was.
That was when?
Oh, 98 to 2000. Yeah, 98 to 2000.
So you, what was it again?
The
You said
fancy
it so
term is
fast.
petroleum supply specialist.
Dude,
Yeah, that's the fancy one. The
fancy.
non-fancy is I'm a guy who drove a fuel truck and pumped gas for Uncle Sam. So it's
Okay.
not as sexy when you put it like that.
Yeah.
But
So that's
forklift.
interesting that that's where you started because I know, which we don't have to jump to that, but I'm just saying I know where what you ended up doing in
Yeah.
the military. So that'll be interesting.
Well,
So that was your first
it was.
MOS,
It was.
and you did that for.
I did that for about 2 years because when I first came in, like I scored well, not where I could have done a lot of things, but everybody told me the recruiters are gonna lie to you. Some do, you know.
Yeah.
Mine were straight up with me. And I'm like, man, I'm just gonna do 2 years, go back to college, get my college paid for. So when at the MEPS, which is Military Entrance Processing Station, where they take you to enlist, they sat down for jobs. They're like, hey, well, do you want to look at the 3 year ones? And I was like, no, you guys are gonna try and hose me over.
Yeah.
When I don't realize that I screwed myself over because I didn't want
Sure.
to look at it.
Yeah.
But the things I could have done, but again, life path would have been so much different.
Oh yeah.
So I ended up deploying
So
in '99.
where did you go for basic?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina,
Oh, okay.
in June, and it's very
Oof.
humid.
Oof.
Yeah, very
And
humid.
basic back then was not what it is now.
It was. It's always changed,
I always
right?
see weird videos now. I don't know if it's, and I'm not actually poking fun
Mm-hmm.
at anybody. I don't know if it's Air Force or if it's Army, but like
Ooh.
the squeaky chickens in the face and all these
Um,
things of basic that have seemed to be a little softer now. I'm not
so
saying it's easy, and I'm not saying I would survive. I'm just saying it seems like you're not allowed to say certain things. Like the movies we watch.
depends. It depends on the command who is in charge, right?
Gotcha.
Well, like what my dad went through. I don't know if you ever seen a movie. Oh man. It was called Tigerland. It was about Vietnam and the train up that they did for Vietnam. I can't remember the actor's name, but
Yeah.
irrelevant. But and it was during showing basic then. If you look at Full Metal Jacket and how things
Sure.
were then,
Yep.
it was rough, right? And they used to be able to lay hands on you, and I wish they still could. Once I got through, that was not an option. If you got taken back behind the woodshed, then drills
Nobody's
had to make sure that stayed very quiet.
right.
But I
Which
did see
probably
it happen.
happened.
It needed to happen.
Well, yeah.
With some people, but whether it did, I never saw it.
And I don't want to have too many opinions because I'm not in the military.
Right.
But it is, when you think about military, these are the people that are be going through so much stuff. I'm not saying that they should be beaten to snot, but you do have to go through an intense, stressful training so that you can handle the
need to be
intense.
prepared.
Yeah.
You need to be
It's a different level. That's why my dad raised me that way. Is military highest respected job in my mind. Highest, and I don't care what your MOS is in the military. You signed up for that. There's a chance that you're
well, especially in the last two. If you're I don't know, a supply guy. It's
gas
not World
truck
War II,
guy.
right? World War II, you had a conventional warfare where you had defined enemy lines.
Oh.
That did not exist in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. So if you're sitting in a chow hall line, the next thing you know, you're getting mortared and you're just a supply guy. Well, guess what?
You're a supply guy. Yes.
You know,
It is. Yeah.
not everybody
Because it
is an
almost-
officer. Everybody has a
Right.
no, but the majority of the military, the infantry and whatnot.
So I always hear the term operator because I watch Grand Thumb, I watch Warrior Poet occasionally, but like you hear operator. What is an operator? Where's the cutoff for I'm an operator and I'm not?
Really look at it is going to be your special operations guys,
Gotcha.
right? Army, your special forces. So you have your different level of your regular troops, and then you've got everything like I said, supply, whatnot, up to infantry,
Mhm.
and then you have your rangers, which the crazy dudes. You need them to jump in to secure an airfield. Those are the psychos that are going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Occupy by force, and then you have as usually referred to as the operators, the special forces guys. Green Berets, who are that specialized stuff, and then on top of that, you've got Delta, right? The guys nobody ever knows or hears about because
Ah,
it's some dude on the street who looks like just some guy that you would never guess it, and that's
right.
you
That's
know
what they want. That's the how it's
it
supposed to be.
is.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
each branch will have like
Right.
Marines have their Force Recon
Mars
and
is that Mar? What is
MARSOC,
Marsoc? Okay.
Marine Special Operations Command.
I was gonna say because it always seems like Army they have a lot of different.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's the
They have a
biggest
lot
branch.
of different operations. Air Force, like pilots, and then I don't know a
They
ton.
do have their guys that will roll with our with
Right.
our special forces.
Sure.
They're the guys that are calling the missiles from talking to the big airplanes.
Right.
Down
Of course.
on a forehead.
Yeah. Which they can.
They
like
did.
right on
No,
us.
they did.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
But then there's like you hear Navy and they have the Navy SEALs, of course. Like that's I don't want to say Hollywood, but like they're known. But then I always feel like Marines, it's either Marine or MARSOC. And you almost have nothing else, it seems like.
No, because everybody's Marine for rifleman first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like
I love the Marines. I got.
I know there's plenty of jokes, the crayons, yada yada yada.
Oh, yeah.
But it does seem like I've heard some stories from other guys that it's like, basic Marine unit rolls through and it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's
Like for their job, what they do, yes, we want them, but they're not special forces. They're not like
they can do a lot. Which
they could do a lot, but
like
it doesn't seem like maybe they're as discreet.
coming down on me, and there is a platoon of Marines. I would love to have them help me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Versus an Army support group. So, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Give me a hand here.
Because it's almost they're the hammer
Yeah, they are.
in a sense. Not that Army doesn't have their own hammers, but it's just like this is what they're bred for. This is what they're.
In every branch is specialized.
Of course.
So.
Yep. For sure. But it is Army is the widest and seems like it has the most like
It does.
they're the surgeons.
We
Like a surgeon, like they can do every little operation.
we got our hands on everything. We have aircraft. We have boats.
Yeah.
And so we can do it, but we don't have the fighter jets. We don't have aircraft carriers. all
Sure.
those battleships.
Yeah. That's why it's a team effort.
Yeah.
But only you guys are allowed to make fun of each other.
True.
Except I do make fun of my cousin who's in the Air Force when he's here. But that was because I grew up with him watching him pretend to be a ballerina. So that I'm like, well.
I'm surprised I didn't go to the Navy though.
But okay, so backtrack, driving a petroleum,
Yeah, driving a fuel truck.
and you are stationed where out of basic?
Fort Bliss, Texas.
Okay.
It's kind of a culture shock going from central Wisconsin kid to El Paso.
No kidding.
It was a hard adjustment at first, but once I got away from the malls and the clubs and got out into the city, I loved it.
Yeah.
But just some wonderful people there.
Yeah.
It's a place I love to go visit. My wife is from there, and I wouldn't live there. It's just way too busy, too packed.
Yeah.
But amazing.
What part of Texas is that in? Because I realized the other day, like Texas is huge.
It's a third the size of Alaska. But it is
That's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's ginormous, and El Paso is going to be as far west Texas as you can get before you hit New Mexico. And if you go, it's on the Rio, so it borders Mexico. And
Okay.
so when I was in because after basic, you have what we call AIT, Advanced Individual Training.
Where you learn your MOS.
So I'm there, and towards the end, our drill sergeant is giving us our assignments, and he's like, Vetterkind. He's like, you ever been to Texas? No, drill sergeant. You want to go to Texas? No, drill sergeant. Well, tough crap. You're going to El Paso. I was like, did I get a choice in this? And I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And it was. I'm glad that I went there.
So how long were you there before you said you got deployed?
So I was there. I got there in December of '98. And was it February of '99? I was going to Kuwait. Now, I know there are be people listening. Kuwait's not a deployment, right? So you can consider rotation. Back when I went there, Saddam Hussein was still in charge,
Okay.
and they were still firing Scud missiles into Kuwait and down in our area. So what we were there for, Patriot missile, was as the air defense shield for Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and whatnot to intercept those missiles.
Gotcha. Snap. Saddam Hussein was balling back then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you had the Desert Storm was in '91. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think
From
Aaron Schnitzler was in Desert Storm.
Yeah, sixth grade. Yeah, I was in sixth grade when that happened.
Ooh. Now that's a totally different track.
And then I ended up, when he was captured, I was like a city away from, or no, I was actually in the city. I was in the city. He was on the outskirts of it the night he was captured.
Heck.
Yeah, up into Crete.
Sheesh. He's not the one. No, that was Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, 9/11 in Afghanistan, the cave.
In the caves. So, okay. Interesting. So you were in Kuwait for how long?
That was only 6 months, which, and it was a different kind of thing, right? The world was different back then.
Yeah, for sure.
So I had a great time. I mean, I went skiing on the Persian Gulf. I raced go-karts down in Kuwait City. I had a little license from it. You know, we got to go into Kuwait City. It's the first time I ever saw a Lambo, and there's some money over there from the oil.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
yeah.
The stuff that I saw there was cool. Camel, drop. It's so tall, and I was in a tall truck. Our fuel trucks are tall, and a camel had to drop its head and stuck its head inside of our truck. I mean, those things are massive. I never.
Kidding.
Yeah.
Any other than maybe some fun stories, but any wild stories that happened in Kuwait? Like anything that really stood out, or was it, like you said, pretty basic, but then some of these fun things?
One of the hottest places I've ever been.
Ooh.
Second hottest place. The hottest was Afghanistan, believe it or not. But yeah, Kuwait, it would get to like 120 degrees plus. We had to adjust when we were going because it was so hot. We had a rule: if you had to use a porta-john to go number 2, you had to tell somebody, leave the door open, and take 2 bottles of water. One to dump on the seat and the other to hydrate with while you were in there, because you would pass out. Just taking, yeah. It was so terribly hot.
Yeesh.
And, but it was, as a, what was I, 20-year-old kid at the time,
Mm-hmm.
it was an experience I wanted.
Sure.
Right. Part of why I joined the Army, was to get out and travel the world.
Sure.
So being able to go there and experience that and see things.
Well, in a short amount of time, you go from Wisconsin, South Carolina, Texas, Kuwait.
Yeah.
Sheesh. So then, when you're done in Kuwait, where'd you end up?
I came back with my unit. We came back to Fort Bliss and just doing my stuff there. And then time came for me to re-enlist. And I liked the Army, but I wanted to change jobs.
Sure.
So, me being smart, I decided to go military police. I always wanted to be a cop, right?
Sure.
I didn't have a full understanding of what military police did. There is the cop aspect, but it's not like civilian cop, right?
Sure.
and I didn't realize too that a lot of the stuff that they did was combat oriented. So the law enforcement was just a small portion of the overall picture of what they did.
Right. So law enforcement meaning the cop stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the other portion? What do you mean by combat?
All combat. So dealing with prisoners of war, right?
Oh.
So that was a big
like people
portion.
that we took captive?
Yeah. People that we took captive, we now have to process.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All
Transport
legal,
them,
no
protect
crimes.
Well, that happened in Abu Ghraib. The war crimes part.
Sure.
Things got a little dicey in 03.
Yeah.
So,
never 03.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
That's when the whole thing kicked off.
I'm trying to think if 9/11 was 01.
Yeah.
And I remember that on the news. I'm trying to think if 03 I did remember seeing something on the news.
Yeah, well, it's because the whole Iraq thing kicked off, right?
Yeah.
So in 2000, I reclassed military police, and then I stayed at Fort Bliss. I had gotten married, and for my first marriage, stayed at Fort Bliss. And I kind of worked as kind of like a game warden. I worked out. Okay. But Fort Bliss is different, right? It's 1.12 million acres. Oh, wow. Massive.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like the desert patrol, right? So that's where all the training area is, but you also dealt with the immigration problem,
Yeah.
with whole drugs, all of the stuff that came with it.
Yep.
Somebody has to patrol it.
You ever
That's what we
beef?
did.
It's gonna be so out of pocket. You ever beef with the cartel?
No, it's
Okay.
not. I didn't choose to. They left us alone, and likewise, and that's a conversation
Okay,
off
sure,
table
sure,
of why I
sure, sure.
believe why. But yeah, there's certain things that we all just kind of left each other. No, I never had any dealings with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
If they avoid you, then what can you
yeah,
do?
they
I
knew the
mean,
business
yeah.
where we were
Sure.
over, and we just went there. So, and then what? '02, I was sent to South Korea, where I was.
Whoa.
What was I? Maybe 30 minutes from the North Korean border.
Whoa.
So that was
How?
that was an experience.
So, like, North Korea is obviously jacked up.
Yeah, I feel bad for those folks.
Yeah. How rowdy does it get at the border, though?
Not at all, because it's
I was gonna
littered with
say.
landmines.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, yeah.
So you have the demilitarized zone, which it's gonna go the entire, was it 30, people are gonna be mad at me, 35th parallel, 33rd parallel, I can't remember. It's the same parallel we're on.
Yeah.
But it's where in after the Korean War there was an armistice, right? There was the war never stopped. Matter of fact, the armistice expired, and the war is actually still active between North and South Korea, unless things have changed after I left, and very well could have. But the border, we have two bases, Camp Boniface and Camp Liberty Bell, and then you have on the other side of it, and it's open, right? Like you could walk back and forth between the border, but you get shot if you do, but you can't.
There's repercussions.
Yeah, it's named Boniface and Bell because there were two trees that were on the border that were blocking U.S. sightline to North Korea. So Lieutenant Bell and Lieutenant Boniface went over there with an axe to cut it down, and the North Korean soldiers came over there and used the axe to kill those guys. So they then, we cut down the tree, and
Wow.
crazy stuff.
That's wild.
Now, Korea was, man, that was an experience.
Yeah, not like Kuwait.
No. And like I said, being able is a blessing. Being able to travel in different parts of the world.
Sure. Yeah. There's a certain beauty to it.
We are so spoiled here.
Yeah.
Americans have no clue how spoiled we are. And
for sure.
South Korea is I don't know if it's democratic, but people have freedoms there, right?
Sure.
Not like North Korea, where it is.
Right.
It's how it
is
terrible. But we always figured if North Korea invaded, they would hit Seoul and be like, wait a minute, you guys told us that it was just like here, right? But meanwhile, they've got a Pizza Bell and a Taco Hut. Yep, I said those right. And McDonald's and everything else. Yeah. So the time in Korea was unique, right?
Sure.
Just the different experience.
So is that considered a deployment then? No,
it's just an overseas tour.
Okay. Gotcha. Overseas tour. So you were just doing MP stuff over there?
Yeah. So we were on a small little base camp, and our mission, if North Korea invaded, I was part of 1st Infantry Division. We were literally a speed bump. We existed to slow down North Korea so everybody else could get there. It's a nice suicide mission.
Yeah. Nice. Great.
But that's what we were.
Yep.
But I was in charge of a squad of MP soldiers, so I had I think at the time 9 guys under me, and I was a desk sergeant. So we had a patrol that we would kick out to our different base camps we had around our area, and we were responsible to make sure soldiers aren't doing dumb stuff, which is a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah,
soldiers do a lot of dumb stuff
for sure.
So halfway through my time there, we were out in the field, and everything kind of changed for us. We were out in the field, and we get an alert for a real-world mission, meaning, hey, this is not training. We need to respond to something. Mm-hmm. And it was a traffic accident. We get out to where we're supposed to meet our guys at, and there's just a poncho on the ground, and okay, what's going on? And there's a tank, right? And there's this massive tank.
What's a poncho? You mean like a literal poncho?
Camouflage poncho.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
For a second, I thought that was
a
name for something, because you said then a tank, and I'm like, those are two very
poncho was on the street,
okay.
And the tank was parked, next to it.
I see where this is going.
And I didn't know what was going on. I was like, what's going on? They're like, yeah, there were 2 girls and the South Koreans had this thing whenever a tank rolled by, because they're loud, they would turn their backs and they would plug their ears.
Oh, no.
And there were two schoolgirls that were on the road and not off the road. And when they were on the road, the tank came and they turned their backs and they plugged their ears. But the problem with the tank was the communication inside the tank was broken. So the driver has a massive thing blocking him, and the TC, the tank commander, is trying to yell to him. It's very loud.
Oh, yeah.
And by the time he was able to get out of his hatch and tell the guy to stop, they had to back up off the girls. So we had to go and block off a road, a very busy road with a lot of very angry South Koreans that, thank God, they didn't know what happened, because they probably would have killed us.
Yeah.
And it's at that point, I am pretty sure I saw my first ever, and maybe my only, angel. I truly believe so.
Wow.
So we had a bus that was trying to run us over. This is normal in my world, okay? So the bus was trying to run us over, and
At
it was
this
event, at this intersection,
accident.
yeah, because at this roadblock, yeah. So it's just me, an American soldier of mine, and one Korean soldier. We call him a Katusa, a Korean augmentee to the United States Army. So it's a rich South Korean kid instead of being a cop. So if you're in South Korea, again, we're spoiled as Americans.
Yep.
Mandatory service for males. You will be one of three things. You will be one of their Korean National Police, and basically your whole thing is riot control, because they riot a lot there. And then your second one is going to be their South Korean Army, and those guys are hardcore, man. The Rock Army, those guys are hardcore. Wouldn't want to do it. And if you got money, you could be a Katusa and you work with the U.S. Army.
Gotcha.
It's an easier life than the Rock Army. And so it was me, my soldier, and one of our Katusas who spoke Korean, or Hangul, if you will. But bus is trying to run us over, and we have no ammo, right? We're in a training exercise.
Yep.
But we do have our weapons, and my soldier, out of instinct, just picks up his rifle and points at the bus driver, and I said, oh, no.
Please.
I run over, and I slapped the rifle down, and it was too late, because everybody lost their minds.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, no. And then I look over to my right, and off the road, in this little, kind of like a little store area, if you will, whatever you want to call it. And
plaza?
Yeah.
Sure.
And I see this Korean dude pick up a bottle and smash it and start to walk towards us. And I was like, somebody's dying today, right? Me or him.
And it's
be
probably
me.
not me.
But now, if I do something, I've got all these Koreans that are going to revolt. And out of nowhere, some guy grabs his arm and just and takes the bottle and disappears. Like I could have, in this area, because I saw the guy do this, I could have seen what it was just like
gone. Just yeah. Wow.
And I from that time on, I truly believed at that point. I was like, dude, that had to have been. You know?
What was your faith like at this point in your life?
Man, I grew up Catholic, so I don't even know if I had a faith. I heard about, I would go there, do some PT exercises at Mass. I didn't have, I believe there was a God.
Sure.
And there were certain lines that I had, I was like, that I knew, or I believed, I should say, that if I do certain things, that I felt like, no, he is not going to forgive me for that, right? Certain things, like if I ever committed adultery, for me, that was one of those things that was like, I cannot do that, because that is like a red line. I won't do it.
Yeah.
But I would sure go out and, get drunk and all this other stuff,
sure,
right?
Sure.
But my faith was, I believe there's a God, but I mean, there was nothing personal, because it's, I said, I grew up in Catholic Mass, trying not to fall asleep, and there was just really
not much different than this last Sunday. Did you hear in the audience at one point? Did you hear that? It was, I'm not going to say who it was, but I knew who it was, and they were in the back, and I heard it when I was preaching. I just heard
what would be worse, that or answering a phone call, Derek?
Hey, we've had some wild things happen on a Sunday, but
yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
my faith was non-existent.
Sure. Okay.
And it showed.
Gotcha.
It really did. Because I had. It's like you're talking about this last week. I was grounded in nothing, nothing at all, right? Just blown around, right?
Yep.
There was absolutely no I'm not gonna say I didn't have a moral compass. I just didn't have this. I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard for me to explain. It's just other than you know, I had no concept of well, what it meant to follow Jesus, or
Sure.
what that looked like, right?
Yeah.
As I hear so many testimonies, and I liken there's like three. To me, I've noticed that there's like three types of testimonies. There's the person whose life is just going up and then just hits that wall so hard, and they come down and they remember the day that they were saved. They remember all of this, and those I've seen are a lot of times, I guess, if you have a lot to be forgiven for, and you're going to be extremely grateful, right?
Yep.
And I can see that. And I have people that I picture that are like that on Sundays, and wonderful. I mean, that's awesome. And then I the other type that I've noticed are, and this is not in a bad way, but just the way life has played out, generational thing, right? Their grandparents did the right thing, their parents did the right thing, they're doing the right thing, so their faith has been a steady thing. They think that their testimony is boring, but their testimony is coming from blessings, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then mine is just kind of like this. I don't know when I was saved. I don't. It's just been this process from birth till now where God has just, I can look back at so many of those, like Korea, where I could sit there and say he was there. You know how many times in Iraq that I'm shocked that I didn't die, that I can sit there and a lot of dumb stuff that I did, right? So it's not just enemy stuff. When you're bored, you do stupid stuff. We're guys. We do stupid stuff. Where I can look back and say, "Yep, I saw his hand in that."
Yeah.
To failures in life. I mean, I can see his hand in all of this now, but I couldn't then because I was just more wrapped up in myself.
Sure.
So it's just been this steady uphill with a whole bunch of it's like an EKG.
Sure. Yeah.
Just that's just kind of been my
Pulse.
Yeah.
Dude. Cool. So, Angel Pierce saves the day.
No, spent the rest of our time.
I was gonna say, how does that play out with the higher than you in charge? The U.S. just ran over 2 Koreans. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that?
I was just like spiritually, or
no. Like
physical?
In the physical,
it was chaos.
Yeah,
just riots, and the people were from our base camp, so we dealt with it, and it was just riot, Molotov cocktails, and it was sketchy. But
and you're MP, so you're probably
we're good.
Or when you go to certain places, is your MOS kind of like there but not?
It really depends. So, and there's a lot of legal stuff that goes into it, right?
Sure.
Status forces agreements. One of our functions is riot control.
Yep.
So, but there was so much and so few of us, right, that we actually would travel around to the different base camps to teach other MOSs how to do riot control. Yeah, here's how you stand in the line. Here's how you do movements. Here's how you snatch and grab a dude and scuff them up behind you when nobody's seeing. You know what I mean? But
things that have to be done.
Teaching on that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I know that.
So the riot control is a part of it, but
sure.
Yeah, it was chaos. I mean, it was just so much anger, and I didn't, because I came into it like, man, you guys should be grateful, right? We're here. But then I start to think, especially as I matured, and I was like, even in Afghanistan, it's like, how would I feel if a foreign army were in my country running over some of my people?
Even if, and this is where it's hard for me too, is like, even if I have like an extraordinary enemy, right? Like in the Middle East, there's people that are just civilians chilling out. Yeah. It's not every Middle Eastern person is evil. No, they're chilling. They're living their life. But then there's this evil group, be whatever you want to call it, terrorists. I can't think of the proper term, but like evil group of people,
insurgents.
Yeah.
We call it
right.
One man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter. That's what they say.
Yeah, apparently these days, right, with Israel and whatnot. But anyway, sorry, I'm on the side of Israel. I meant people saying that. Oh my word, what's the name of the group? Hamas. What the crap? How could people? Anyway, beside the point. We'll probably get there eventually, but that's where I lack understanding. South Korea, I can kind of get it, but kind of not, because they have this armistice and war, but it's not really going on. But it's there, but it's
It
not.
could pop off
It
whenever.
could pop off whenever, but it's not necessarily as active as like what the Middle East ended up being, right? Where the Middle East, I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead. We'll get to it, but it's kind of like the Middle East seemed like every day the insurgents are doing something. Whereas like North Korea, it's not every day that they're pushing into South Korea. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's South Koreans, I can understand why they maybe didn't like having Americans there. In the Middle East, I'd be like, thank you.
No. Well,
that's my perspective. Now, this is very ignorant perspective. It's very ignorant.
Honest, it's religion.
Yeah, sure.
So, the Islamic world does not want us coming in to dictate to them. They believe we're so morally corrupt.
Even the civilians.
Yeah.
They would rather face the insurgency, but have religious freedom.
It depends, right? Iraq was different. I talked to
not that you can speak for all, but from your perspective, I talked to so many
wonderful people on the street. Like, it blew me away. I had the mindset going in that everybody hated us, and it was just going to be, one of the most profound moments for me was sitting in Baghdad on Christmas, right? Sitting in a truck. We're doing escorting a unit. Right, so we've got guns and everything. We're rolling through the city. Have this up armored truck, and then this dude starts to walk up to the truck, and I'm like, "Here we go!" Right, so he can't see it, but inside of the truck, I am readying a 9mm Beretta, and I have this thing pointed at him right underneath the door.
Yeah.
Where if he were to do something, all I do pop up, he just leans his head and says, "Hey, Merry Christmas." And it just stopped me in my tracks because my mind has been so focused on war.
Yeah,
everybody's a threat, everybody's an enemy, and it just like I was like, wait, there's Christians here,
right? Yeah.
I had no clue.
Oh, for sure.
And then I realized some of the safest areas, or some of the areas I felt the safest in there were the Christian areas. They were looking out for us, but most of us, we didn't. There's so much to learn that none of us ordinary guys on the road, at least I can only speak for my unit, we didn't understand the dynamics of the culture and what was going on. We went because we were told to go to war. Right. There was a lot more going on.
When you I don't want to get too far ahead from Korea, but you didn't get like necessarily like a whole rundown and debrief of the Middle East when you got deployed there. No, you're basically told mission relevant information.
So cultural stuff. So it went down a little bit different for Iraq than it did Afghanistan. So Iraq, right? So that whole thing happens, or I get done with Korea, right? I come home from Korea in January of 2002.
Okay. You were there how long?
For a year.
Okay.
And I had a 30-day mid-tour leave.
Were you there with your wife?
Nope. I was there solo tour.
Okay.
So when I came home on mid-tour leave, my wife was pregnant. So by the time I got home, right, January, she was like 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
And then all of this in March, all of this stuff with Iraq, right? Boom. We start prepping. Everybody from that, believe it or not, from the time I touched down on ground in January back at Fort Bliss is where I came to after Korea. Okay. I came back home. I showed up to my unit, and my first sergeant was like, "Hey, I know you just got back. Go see, talk to the sergeant major and see if you're going to go with us because we're prepping for Iraq." And I was like, "What the heck? I just got back from here."
Right.
Go talk to him. Hey, guess what? You're still going. So, okay. Now we begin preparing for the Iraq push, and there's a lot of other stuff going on.
How was that emotionally?
I was really angry because what was said to me. Right, my sergeant major told me that it wouldn't be fair for him to send somebody in my place, and I was like, I was just gone for a year.
Yeah,
nobody else has done that. They've been here, and it's like, nope, you're going. It just wouldn't be fair. So
we have different views on fair.
To flash forward a few years later, that sergeant major, I actually saw the life come out of him in the back of an ambulance as he died from a heart attack as I walked past it.
Snap.
It was my thought process was different too then.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's like, "Yeah, you're going." It's like, all right, cool. And well, not cool, but what can I do?
Right.
Of course, that caused a lot of issues between me and my ex. And I say ex because, as we have like 3 months from the time I got home till boom, you're getting ready, and I shipped off to Iraq. But the month before, or I would say a couple weeks before, maybe a month before, we would show up to work every single day, not knowing if we were going to go home, not knowing if this is a day we were going to go, head over to Iraq. The amount of stress
Do
was.
they even give you a
incredible.
chance? Like, if that happens, do they even give you a chance to go say bye?
We brought our bags with us every single day. We would see our families at the tarmac as we said goodbye. That was it. She's pregnant. I'm like, just gone a year, right? Things are just.
And this is the beginning of kind of the, was it called the Iraq War?
Yeah. OIF, right? Operation Iraqi Freedom. And
Gotcha.
that was OIF 1.
And that was kind of the beginning. This was post 9/11. No.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you said
2 years. But
Yeah.
you're
203. So backtrack for a second. Where were you on 9/11?
I was on leave in Fort Bliss. We have what called use or lose, right? Leave that I didn't take. If I don't take it by the end of I lose it. So
you were on leave. What was that like? You're active duty military, and then this happens. Now, what was it like in that moment? And
so
let's stop there.
My stepdaughter at the time, my stepdaughter stepson took him to school. And on my way out the door, I looked over, I flipped on the news, and it was the first tower, and I was like, what the heck, right? I was like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Take him to school, come back, sit down, and a little bit later, the second one hits, and I was just like, just walk over to the phone, because we didn't have cell phones.
Sure, yeah.
Pick up the phone, call my boss, and I was like, do you need me? And he's like, we don't know yet. Just stand by. So I was like, okay. I just started getting dressed. I'd never been through this before, but
What
I can see the writing. I start throwing on my uniform and I'm getting ready, and then I get a call back a little bit later. He's like, you need to come in. I was like, all right. So Chaos Fort Bliss was shut down. I mean, the base was not prepared for it. Sure. All of the army shut down. The entire city was shut down because Bliss is in the middle of El Paso. 750,000 people, right? It's massive. And so I get on there, and now I'm running out to check on our ammo supply points, and those guys are freaking out. I mean, and it was like something I'd never seen, but it was like knowing at that time, I was like, well, this has to be answered for. So I knew. And it's funny, when I enlisted, one of my friends in college, my best friend growing up, he's like, Vince, what if you go to war? I was like, man, I'm only going in for 2 years. I'll never see anything. Well, I had re-enlisted twice. And all I'm thinking is, like, here I am. I'm going to war.
Yeah.
I didn't know where, with who. And and then, the whole stuff with Afghanistan was going.
So what was what's the difference? Talk to me like I'm an idiot. What is the difference between the Iraqi freedom and then what's going on in Afghanistan?
Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Is there a way to sum it up briefly?
So the Afghanistan one is supposedly like the origin of why, the planners of 9/11 and going in there to take out the Taliban, but somehow we stayed 20 years because it turned into nation rebuilding, and there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in war.
Yep.
And they don't care about the bodies. And then Iraq, I couldn't even. I have my ideas on why I think Iraq happened when it did.
Sure.
I think we were doing our job in Afghanistan. So the United States military, when you unleash us, is the most it is the most deadly human force that you're going to find.
Yeah.
The things that we're just so good at. We're so good at it. And if you unleash American military into an area with the intention on us destroying it, it will get destroyed.
Yeah,
and it will
for sure.
Reminded how fast we.
And you could probably do it with not everybody.
I think we were doing it too fast. Again, war is money.
In Afghan or okay.
I think war. That's my opinion.
Yep.
War is money.
Sure.
Slow it down. Another war pops off in Iraq that didn't need to, because there's nothing worse than when you're sitting there. And you do get angry of why you're there, because you're like, why the heck am I here? I mean, Yeah, Saddam was a terrible dude, man. I
Yeah.
talked to people that had unspeakable things done to them by him and his, at the behest of him and his kids.
Sure.
Just absolute terrible things, right?
Are his kids still alive?
No, they were blown up,
Okay.
rightfully so.
Yeah.
He was hung, they were blown up. But
He was hung.
yeah,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
yeah, in the middle of the night,
Huh.
and so
We did that?
Iraqis did that. Well, of course, our help.
Well,
But they had to do it, you know.
right.
But not us.
Interesting.
So
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, so there's a lot of it, especially when, I'll get back to like, so we got the call to, all right, we're gonna go.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
April 8th of 03, jump on a plane, land in Germany, call back home to find out my ex is in labor and delivery.
Oh.
And next thing you know, all right, I'm on a plane for Kuwait City. I have no clue what's going on. I don't know nothing. So I finally get the call home and talk to her like on the 11th, 12th maybe, to find out, oh, I have a son.
3 days.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
3
I have a
days.
son. Right? I had no clue.
Yeah.
So, no, I say. So, couple that with, as I'm sitting there going through Iraq, if you're not in a good mental state when you go into war, you do have to be careful.
Sure.
Because your mind can go to, it can go to some not so great places if you, if you're not careful with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I ended up doing a year in Iraq, so it was 24 out of 27 months that I was gone. Hey, shocker, when I got home, I got divorced.
It's not super. I mean, that's miserable, but it's not super surprising at the same time. That's tough. That's wild.
Yeah.
So that first tour?
Yeah.
First tour in Iraq. How was it?
People look at me like I'm crazy, but I had fun. So it's before the politicians got involved. And
sure.
Again, when you unleash Americans,
we're doing our job.
And we do it well.
Yeah.
And
it was before things were, I get what you're saying. Sure.
I mean, there are a lot of things that developed and happened. I mean, when I was there, I think I want to say halfway through the time I was there, this whole, not even half, maybe a quarter of the way through, this whole new talk of these things called IEDs. We didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
We had to now start figuring out how to deal with these things because they were killing a lot of people.
Yeah, for real.
One of my convoys, we were getting ready to, one of our missions, we were guarding these Iranians, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was Iranian brigade, armored brigade that was trying to invade Iraq while we did, or they were going to actually go into Iran, but we stopped them. And then we ended up just kind of escorting them around Baghdad. It just kind of went with them wherever. One day we were getting ready to roll out on our mission, and I was the rear truck, and we had 3 of our trucks, and then we had the Iranian cars. I'm in the back, and I wanted to be in the back because the back has the most action. But we also had this problem with our truck because our air conditioner didn't work, and it's an up armored Humvee in Iraq. So when it's over 120 degrees,
you're cooking. Yeah.
So when we would get to Baghdad, we would drop our windows to get some air. We weren't supposed to, but dang, dude, I need to breathe.
Yeah.
So the squad leader that we were going with came over to our truck at the last minute. He's like, and we were already delayed on ours. He's like, hey, I want you guys to be up front. I'm like, come on, sir. And, this is the most action. He's like, I know, but you guys know the route the best. I want you up there leading it. I was like, all right. So we weren't happy, but we did what we told.
Yep.
So we get down to the Baghdad, and there's this group of Iraqi police that are blocking off the road. It's odd.
Do you have good relationship with them?
I had no relationship with them.
Okay.
We didn't deal with them at all.
Sure.
Anybody in Baghdad, I can't answer for.
Gotcha.
But I know we've never dealt with them.
Okay.
So they're blocking.
So when you're running into them at this point, you're kind of like...
It was odd. It was why are they here?
Sure.
So they had actually have freeways in Iraq, believe it or not. So we hit the freeway ramp, and it's very developed. And we start to go down, and my vehicle goes through. All right, second vehicle goes through, and all of a sudden we heard a massive explosion. I thought it was mortar. So my first thing, tell my guy, all right, push it. So we start to go, and then my gunner looks back. He's like, they're stopped. Flip around, come back. An IED had gone off. They had posted on the back of a guardrail. So the rivets from the guardrail went through the door of the up armored Humvee and injured, the driver and messed up the back of the gunner. And so the driver, we had to throw in our truck and drive over to the closest base to get her, medevaced out. And the thing is the window, they're bulletproof. Like, it's like inch and a half thick or so.
Sheesh.
It was bowed in from the blast. And I was looking at that, and I looked at my guys, and I said, when I got back in the truck, I was like, if that's us, we'd be dead.
Yeah. Because
Like,
windows down.
Windows down. Like, me and my driver would have been dead, and my gunner would have had no legs. And I was like, and of course I have to look at it and say, okay, why were we running late, and why did my squad leader, or that squad leader, come up at the last minute and say, I need you to switch with these guys.
Yeah.
I can only count it to one thing, right?
Yeah.
God's watching over me. Because we should have been dead.
Yeah.
And it was quite an opening experience.
No kidding.
So
that's first tour in Iraq.
Yeah. That was Iraq, yeah.
Iraq.
I only did the one in Iraq.
Oh, okay. So then after that year in Iraq, you do your thing. You go through it all. Probably some other wild stuff going on.
Yeah, we were taking prisoners to Abu Ghraib whenever that whole debacle went down.
Sure.
One of the most miserable places on earth.
Wow.
Yeah, you can see why. If the news, they paint a certain picture of it, but when you're on the ground, you can look and see what was going on that contributed to everything.
Yeah.
The conditions they could not have been worse for the U.S. soldiers. So high stress. The food was absolutely terrible. They were sleeping in mangers. I mean, they were in stables.
Yeah.
That's where they were sleeping. It's like, they were getting attacked every single day. You're dealing with prisoners having feces, throwing feces at them, all this stuff. And then the pictures come out, and you're just like, yeah, okay. In no way condone it, but I can see how it happened.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So you weren't there super often. You were just kind of transit delivery.
Yeah.
But you would see. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got done with that tour, back at Fort Bliss.
Yep. Back at Fort Bliss.
Man, life is bliss.
Yeah. Life
took
is
this
bliss.
long to
Get
crack that joke.
divorced. And then, and then a couple years later, I get married to my current wife.
Yeah.
And it's 17 years later.
Wow. So a couple years later, you get married to her.
Yeah.
What happened in that couple years? Did you just in Fort Bliss the whole time?
No, well, yes, because my leadership there recognized, like, I came back, they're like, dude, you've been gone a lot. I was like, yeah. I was like, I know I have. So I went through military police investigation school, became like a detective for the Army.
Dude, that's dope.
For a couple years, I was a detective on Fort Bliss, and then I went.
Was that when some wild stuff happened?
There's always been some wild stuff, but
I was gonna say
there's some wild stuff that happens.
I've heard you say you don't have to tell any stories on this, but yeah, you've mentioned a few things.
It's just some crazy wild stories. That happen.
Yeah, domestics and all that stuff. Was that there or was that somewhere else?
Both. I mean, in the line of work, same thing as a cop, it happens.
Yeah,
but you gotta look at, like, the Strauss-Wise. These dudes they're rolling out, and the problem, and I had to pass along to my children, right? Because I have my daughter enlisted, and she's now out. My son enlisted in the Army; he's still in.
Yep.
And then my middle son is getting ready to ship off tomorrow.
Man, where's he headed? Or can
well, yeah, he's going to be going to basic at Jackson.
Okay, got it.
But there's a culture in the military that is not a good culture.
Sure.
It is a culture of alcoholism and debauchery. I mean,
yeah,
it is a culture of sin. that if you are not careful, I mean, they said, don't live hard, play hard. Well, live stupid, play stupid, or, it's because the outlets that people have. And the one
For
thing
sure.
I found in the, with the military is a lot of people look at Jesus as weak, right? He is
Right.
not a
Yeah.
Valhalla, right? Odin.
Yeah.
These guys
Yeah.
are the warriors. I heard so much about stuff like that. But if they knew you were a Christian, they figured you were weak, and if you needed to be counted on to do the difficult things, you would not be one of them.
Sure.
Would not. I'm like, well, man, I guess I wouldn't do I'm not going to torture the guy at Abu Ghraib, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's what you're meaning. Okay, then don't look at me as that kind of
Yeah.
guy, But
if you want to stand next to me in a firefight, I'm going to put the guy down
right.
to save your life, kind of a thing. That's what, yeah. There's definitely a stigma to Christianity that I think it's because of ignorance. For sure. People don't understand. You can be a Christian.
You're right, because the picture we're
Serve
shown
the
of
country
Jesus is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look at it. He's a meek, he's a weak hippie type
Right.
guy, and that's the mindset. And
Right.
as I start to listen to a lot of podcasts where where the host is an operator former and talking to these guys, this is some of these guys have had their faith the whole way through, and people like these are the strongest dudes I've ever met who have done some of the
when you
compare
the depths, the darkness, the depths of darkness that you see when you're in war, and you can come out and still have your faith. For instance with you, where we were talking about, you didn't necessarily have a deep faith. You believed in God, but you didn't have a deep faith. But you saw, we're not even covering half or even a quarter of what you've seen in your lifetime in the military. And you didn't even necessarily have your faith for a lot of that, yet you were able to find faith after that. Or, like you said, you don't necessarily know exactly, but you probably saw a lot of darkness of war before you ever had a real firm faith.
Yeah.
Yet somehow you're still able to come out on it. That's even more strength.
My faith explains the darkness.
Sure.
Because it never did before.
Sure.
Because I never... People struggle when they can't explain, right?
Right.
So to understand, now that I have a much better understanding of what's playing out in the supernatural.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
That, it is not just, here in the natural.
Yeah.
It's man, once I've started to learn, that whole aspect of, we war not against, flesh and blood, but principalities. Right. And that part is once I started to understand that,
you were able to look back.
I see, I can see this is why. Now it explains so much of the whys. Why was that person doing that?
Yeah. Because it is so profound and dumbfounding to think about it as I haven't been in your shoes, but when I think about war and I think about you and I think about you facing another guy in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it was, it's that's just another human being. Ultimately, that's just another human being. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that you're wrong for being against them because of what they do and so on, but I'm just saying it's so weird to think about it like that. That's another human being, and for some reason, they're doing this. Why?
Yeah.
Why? And you're right. I am going to stop you. However that you see fit. I'm going to stop you. And that applies to the police side of things as well as war. And that's, the understanding that people and ignorance they have to Christianity is, this has become more popular in the last year, I feel like, this information, but it's murder's wrong, killing is not. You need to understand that if you're a Christian.
Most people don't understand
No,
that.
they don't.
I've come to realize that it's it's not. Because, how do I come to terms with being in the military and this? It's well, dude's trying to kill me. I can try to stop him.
Yeah.
I don't have to stand there. The turn the other cheek thing is
that's taken out of context all the time.
I have to let a dude beat me to death inside the Walmart because it's unchristlike to to stop them.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
That seems like a very worldly concept and
Yeah.
perverting the gospel.
And there's a kid in college that we got into a debate about that because I was from where I am and he's from City Slickerville. So the understanding and it's a different in certain aspects, for sure. But in certain aspects, it's like, I grew up, I might as well have grown up in the Middle East to them.
Yeah.
Like, they have no idea. I'm talking about, I can't wait to get back home and go hunting with my dad. You have a gun? Like, they're just dumbfounded. It's like, this is normal. So it's like there was a drastic difference, and we were getting into a discussion one night, and he was like, turn the other cheek. And I was like, that's taken out of context. And he's like, well, Jesus didn't fight back. And I said, you cannot take Jesus not fighting back in his crucifixion and apply that necessarily to your life. There are aspects that, yes, we need to apply that. Let me clarify this. Some Christians are probably going to get into a tizzy about this. 100%, we are to sacrifice ourselves like Jesus did. Mm-hmm. But also realize the reason he didn't fight back is because of the purpose of it. Yeah. Was to die for all of us.
And be innocent.
I am not necessarily... I'm not Jesus. I'm not saving all of humanity. Now, I'm not saying if somebody came up to me and said, I'm going to kill you unless you renounce your faith. Absolutely not. I'm not going to renounce my faith. But there's a chance that I'm going to try to not let you kill me, too.
Yeah.
Well, then some people look at it, well, wouldn't you want to go to heaven? Like, why would you stop? And it's like, no, that's not how this works. People they do so much acrobatics to get around this whole thing. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
It's not it. Jesus had to carry out a purpose that God called him to. And I'm not saying God didn't call me to die, because in a way he did.
Right.
But throughout most of the New Testament and Scripture, it's talking about our flesh. And not just our human body, but our spiritual flesh.
Right.
That carnal desire that we are to crucify and die to. He's not necessarily saying, you need to just go out and die. Otherwise, guess what? Suicide wouldn't be a sin. Or wouldn't... Well, you get what I'm saying. That's a different topic. But... suicide wouldn't be, frowned upon in a sense where it's like, otherwise that would be noble. It would be, like Asian cultures where that was like the right thing to do in certain circumstances.
Japan, the hanging forest.
Yeah. And just different stuff like that. So, rant and tangent a little bit over there, but yeah, I think the people that have that perspective, whether they're not Christians and have that perspective on Christianity, or if you're a Christian and have that perspective, you're wrong both ways. And you need to maybe look into it a little bit more because it's, yeah. Anyway, but it's incredible to me that you can see the darkest pits of humanity and come out with your faith, because there's things that I've seen and it's not even that, well, there's some dark things, but it's not an evil done to another person. It's just a side effect of life and it's dark. You know what I mean? I've had a student commit suicide. Stuff like that, where it's dark, but it wasn't like I'm witnessing an evil. I'm not witnessing somebody do something to somebody against their will.
You're witnessing the torment that this person was going through.
Yes, where it's still a darkness.
It's still,
And dude, anytime that's tested my faith.
I guess the whole thing, evil's, it's subjective, right? It's whoever's perspective. What is, darker to you, maybe not close to it for me, because the different things, but in the end of the day, the evil is still evil. And I'll say it took me a very long time to get to the point where I could look at it as that, right? I could look at it as beyond the person who is committing the act, right? Because again, what did it take for this person, to get from where they started, right? All of us born, innocent little babies, right?
Yep.
To get to be. Some of them have gone through the most disgusting, despicable evils themselves. So to them, it's just life.
Yeah.
Right? It's just what it is. They don't know of anything different. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Others just, it's a slow progression, and, it's just how we all get there is, it's going to be different. But being able to look and see that everybody is, that I've come across, no matter what they've done, is, they've all gotten to a point where they know where now they have allowed the enemy to be able to dictate to them what they're going to do.
Yeah.
to the point where maybe he doesn't even have to dictate anymore. He's got them where they want. Just walk away and say, good, you're good to go, buddy. Have fun.
Yeah.
I know you're going to do it. I don't need to create any more chaos because you're already there.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And that's the part that, you really have to worry about. Is like, you're at that point where he's like, yeah, I'm not worried about you. Like,
Yeah.
dang. Right.
Oh, for sure.
But hey, and just to give you a heads up, in about 10 minutes, I'm gonna have to. Maybe we do round 2.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sean Ryan does part 8. Part 1, part 2.
For sure.
He's
Yeah.
operator.
We could do that. Oh, 100%. So how many tours did you end up doing in total?
I did the one in Iraq, and then when I got done with that, I ended up in recruiting in southern Wisconsin, which that was a test. That was probably one of the hardest things that I did.
Huh.
Trying to convince people to go to war and die.
Right.
Right.
Recruiting during war is probably
during
sucky.
The scourge, right?
Yeah.
In Iraq, and then there we went to Alaska. Which Alaska's beautiful, but Army Alaska sucks. Army Alaska, Army anything finds a way to take what's beautiful, what's wonderful, and how can we make it as miserable as we possibly can? Hey, let's have ranges when it's 20 below. You can do PT out and run outside until it's 30 below zero.
Yeah.
So at 29 below, my butt is running outside. Yeah, that's fun.
So this whole time you didn't get deployed at all
no,
again?
No, I had that break. We call it dwell time because of my 2 years back to back.
Gotcha.
And then it ended up working that way. But once I came to Alaska, they're like, dude, you got to go. And I was like, all right. So from there, I did 1 rotation in Afghanistan.
What does 1 rotation mean?
A year.
A year.
366 days, actually, in Afghanistan.
Leap year.
Afghanistan was, like I said, where Iraq I had fun. Afghanistan was just, it was not good. The experiences and, 148 degrees was that was the hottest place I've ever been. And, that, 3 months in, I want to say 3 months, maybe 2 months in, we had 3 of our guys go home. They were hit by an IED blast, wounded, didn't kill. The gunner broke his back, so he's still in a wheelchair, paralyzed. And then at about in June, so I went there, and gosh, man, what was it, March? I think March of 11, and June 6th. We had an IED go off that killed 5 of our guys. And then war became really, really real.
Yeah, that was gonna be, which we'll just end it right here, and we'll skip to part 2. But my next question was gonna be, when did you start to feel the hate?
I felt that in Iraq, maybe.
The first tour.
Yeah,
there was a moment.
And I don't even know what. I think part of the anger of me being gone for 2 years and things starting to fall apart at home.
Yeah.
Me witnessing my friends. One of my friends, what he thought, and we all thought, was a great relationship with his wife. While we were there, she cleared out his bank account, had an affair. I had to talk to my leadership to get him pulled off a mission, because his plan, if we took fire, was to put the gun down and step up.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking suicide out of a guy because his whole world just fell apart.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then I've got what's going on at home with mine. So being gone for so long, the anger is starting to build. And then just other things. It's like I said, if you're not, that IED that went off, that stuff is all of those things, the heat and all of these things. And it may not seem like a lot to a lot of people. Like, really, that's building your hate. All of these stresses, right? If you're not anchored to anything, right? We had guys in Abu Ghraib that, when tortured prisoners, took pictures of them in pyramids and stuff because they got to a certain point.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And that's when I was there. We didn't get to that point, but I'm not going to sit here and criticize them because, dude, you throw me in that prison in the state of mind that I was in. I don't know
what do you do? Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done.
Right.
Because I was just at a different point. So the hate, the hate is not, it can be just a overnight thing, explosion, loss of really good friends. For mine, it was a buildup, right? And then recruiting, right? Going to Madison, I have people trying to spit on me, baby killer, trying to hit me with a car going through the mall parking lot. Madison's just a wonderful, wonderful place for,
Yeah.
and just the things that I experienced from, nothing close to the Vietnam guys, but the things I experienced from some of my fellow countrymen, it was just like, that stuff starts to building over the phone, the things that were said. I didn't even know what political party I was because I didn't care. Right. Going into that, I had to figure things out because I had to know why somebody is telling me a certain thing and why they hoped I died because of that. Do I pay your salary? Dude, I pay my salary, man. Come on, I pay taxes too. What do you think?
Yeah.
But all the stuff rolling through that, it just builds, and I never addressed it. I never cut it off.
Yeah.
Right. I allowed it to just, and I medicated with alcohol. Right. Which one time somebody said, I heard somebody say that it never in my mind ever. What's another name for liquor? Spirits.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, when I heard that, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Right? Just because of what I have seen, just the regular person turn into a demon.
Yeah.
From one guy, man, it was vodka and cocaine. Woo! We had 5 of us and a dog trying to hold that man down. It was insane at what manifested out of him.
Oh, for sure.
Right. But at the time, I just look at it as a drunken high dude.
Right.
Now I look at things different. Like, not like I'm going to sit there and be out naming, as an exorcism. I'm trying to arrest this guy.
Right.
But again, if I'm understanding, the what's behind it.
For sure. So. Sheesh. All right. Well, part 1.
Yeah.